Okay, we're back, everybody. Thank you for coming to sit, listen, converse with me again on King Shit Talk. I'm very excited about the show that we have for tonight because it's somewhat of a touchy subject, but it's much needed, especially for me and other people that have children, deal with kids. Um, Guardians, the whole nine. And this show in particular is very important for the youth as well. So if you have kids, preteens or whatnot, tell them to pull up a chair and listen right along with you. And I may sound like I've swallowed a camel hump today because I'm trying to get over the cold. I'm drinking my tea and doing everything I can do to kick it. So we'll see what happens. But tonight we're going to be talking about how do we get our youth back on track. And when I say back on track, I don't want it to be taken like just because we have to get them back on track, it means that they're so far gone to where we're just out of sorts and um, out of touch with what's happening. You know, a lot of times when we get older, we can kind of see some things before it actually takes place, or we'll see things around our youth. And they don't even have to be our youth, around youth in general, that we just don't want to happen. Some of these pitfalls and speed bumps that we see that we try to protect them from. And I did some as much research on certain things as I could over the past week, and I'll be going over some of that stuff, and we'll be discussing it. And I always give a little disclaimer. I just want to say that with whatever we discuss today, even though a lot of it may sound negative in the beginning, we're here and we're going to talk about how to flip that, how to get it back on a positive landscape. And helping me do that tonight will be S. Dot. He's here. I'm going to let him, tell you a little bit about himself. I also have Kristen Brown, who's here, and she'll be telling you guys about herself. I have Courtney Harley, who will be coming at some point, and she's going to also be telling you guys about herself. So I want to thank everyone on the Wisdom app that's in here listening right now. I appreciate you as always. And this goes just like every week. You guys can definitely chime in when you feel like it. I will say tonight, though, being that I do have multiple guests up here, if you do request to join in on the conversation, have a little bit of patience because if they're making a point or if they're saying something, I may not pick you up and put you in right then, but I definitely will get to you. Everybody watching on Facebook Live, thank you for showing up. It's going to be a great show. Miss Brown, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. First of all, I want to say thank you for inviting me on here because number one, I am a huge advocate for youth. I mean, I have a thought in my heart that it's like we really need to focus on these guys. And I don't even mean like youth as in 10, 12. I mean up to anybody younger than us, put it that way. But I'm really thinking about that age range, all the way up to 25, even 28, because, we've been there before. And this is something that's so important. So thank you for having me. I feel very honored that you chose me to be on your talk because I really value and respect you. So thank you very much. So my name is Kristen Brown. I call myself, my title has changed 8,000 times, but right now it's self-love mastery and relationship healing author, coach, and speaker. And what I do is I help people heal their inner world so that they can have a better outer experience because everything starts within.
Wow. Well, I'm definitely glad that you're on here, because you should be able to give some very good insight on this. And do you have any children?
Yes, I have 3 children. I have a 28-year-old, a 27-year-old, and a 17-year-old. The first one's a girl, then a boy, then a girl. And for those that are listening on the Wisdom app right now, I turned it on so I could see who which one of our homies are over there listening. But
Yeah.
my relationship with my children is the one of my number one priorities. But what my ultimate goal was I wanted to raise high functioning children into adults who actually like me, right? Not because I was some hard A or, something like this. I really wanted to help cultivate them to be the most powerful presence of themselves that I could possibly cultivate. I didn't want them to be a little replica of me. I wanted to be them in their own individual light.
That's amazing. That's wonderful. S. Dot, you're up.
Yes, sir. Oh man, that's hard to follow. Um, I go by the moniker S. Dot, but my name is Sean Davis. As you can see on my T-shirt, this is actually my particular podcast, Subject Over Surface. I've had many conversations with King via through Facebook with some messages. Asked great question, probes the mind. Really appreciate it. And when he asked me to be on the show, I was really, 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 really honored. And then I heard the topic, and I was totally sucked in. Like KB said, I would have to say my title, if I had to give one, this is how I start my show off, is I'm a stubbornly optimistic political pugilist. So,
Well, that's a mouthful.
I know you have no idea how many takes you have to do for me to get that on a regular basis.
That's fantastic.
But I come from my background kind of does help. I don't know if King remembers this or not, but I was actually a case manager for about 8 years. So I worked with DCF. I had the unfortunate job at many a times that families were separated, and as a case manager, I was trying to do a job to get them back together. And that helped me. So I was around a lot of youth that were going through quite a lot, misunderstandings, and it's unfortunate. I love what we're going to talk about here, but it's unfortunate, and it's probably something I'm going to say repeatedly when we have these conversations. I found myself running into parents that haven't been parented, and that generation gap or trauma continued to kind of fall down on the kids. So in getting them to understand what was going on, or talking to them, or try to correct behavior, took some time. It took some research, took patience. But it was always worth it when the kids were recognizing me as, I think what the most important relationship between me and the children was, I was genuine. And they, even at a young age, I think you can tell when somebody's genuine or not with you, or they're consistently that person, or are you really in it for my best interest? Right. So like coming from someone that was part of a system, they felt like ripped them from their family, to turning around to understand, I'm gonna do everything I can to put your family back together. It took time, it took patience, but it was always worth it. And it didn't always work out that way. And after a while, you start to understand that it's a numbers game. Unfortunately, I'm here in Jacksonville, Florida, for instance. I don't want to go too far on, but when I was heavy in that particular case manager world, if 5 families were separated, the ratio was about 2 might get back together, and that sucks. But that's because the systems that they have to bring the families back together are draconian, to say the least. Like it's just what I would often use I would get in trouble by saying they're using the 1980 playbook to help people in the 2020s. And I was like, it's just not going to work. You don't have enough resources. You don't have enough ability. You don't have it. You're giving them 365 days to get their kids back. So you're giving them 365 days to reverse decades and decades of trauma. So that's kind of where my background comes from. So I feel like I will be able to get some insight to what we're talking about here, even if I get a little passionate about it at times. But I totally understand where we're going and what we're trying to do here. And I think it's of the utmost importance. And that's why I was honored to be part of this panel as well, to engage in this conversation.
Oh, I appreciate you. And the passion is actually what we need. I believe that was part of why I decided to discuss this. That was part of why I chose who I chose to be on here because of that passion that we have for the youth, for making things better, for stopping a lot of this madness that we see on the day to day. And I think one of the things that's very important in doing that is what you were saying about building those relationships. Because one thing I found to be true is that if the youth don't trust, if they don't trust who's talking to them, then whatever you're saying is going to go in one ear and out the other. It starts with that trust, and then with that trust comes the respect, and then you can go on from there. But I'm going to read some of the things that I found, and then you guys tell me what you think about some of this, because it was disheartening for me to see a lot of this. Now, most of this was taken around 2020. That's what these stats were, and it said nearly 50,000 youth are confined today in some way, shape, form, or fashion, and it's mostly for low-level offenses, or they're confined before they can even get a court date. Now, back in 2020, when they were talking about this, they were saying that it was mainly because the juvenile system was so messed up. You know, they'd have these minors sitting somewhere for up to a year before they even get a court date. Do you guys know anything about that, or can you speak on what you feel about that, or why do you even think a lot of that goes on? Miss Brown, you
KB, yes, and KB, you can go
Oh
first,
my
please.
gosh, I thought that would be a great question for SDOT, considering what he used to do. The breakdown starts early. It starts right at the beginning, and until we really change the systems around and understand that we are dealing with little people, I don't care the age again. The brain is not fully formed until 25. We are dealing with people who don't even have all their cerebral architecture in place yet, and we're putting them in these things that they don't understand. They've already probably have some type of disconnection and lack of foundation within their home and family, because most of us know that's when those type of behaviors take place, is when there's this lack of foundation inside the family. But then you're throwing them into some type of holding place for a year, where that's a whole year wasted in their very important time of their life where their brain is getting formed. So, I mean, from go, I feel like we need to be, in a best world, this system needs to work fast, but immediately, even if it's just in holding, it needs to start with some type of big brother, big sister, counseling, therapy, coaching, spirituality, because I'm a huge advocate of spirituality, something we can start to help them retrain their brain in a better way. Yes, if they committed an offense, they probably might need to do whatever time that's handed to them. We get that. And if we could start the ball rolling in a better direction, because now they're out of that environment that was causing that thing, that means there's an opportunity here. There's an opportunity to start working with these kids, showing them love, showing them attention, giving them wisdom, helping them to break down their barriers and their guardedness so that they can actually start to take in a new way. Because, depending on the household, sky's the limits, gentlemen, about where people are raised and what went on in the household. But starting that household, there's a lot of programming that has taken place about self, and self not being enough, and self not being wanted, and self being abandoned, and all the things. And that has to be unpacked at some point in our adulthood anyway. So why don't we, while we have that opportunity, start to try to unpack that?
I totally agree, and it's good that you're talking about breaking down those barriers, because I've encountered some youth that, I mean, from the moment you speak to them, you can tell that they have a wall built up, and it takes some time to chip away at that and actually get to the heart of it. I've even tried it with my own children. I'm doing it with my youngest son now. I mean, a situation popped up today with him, and I'm dealing with him about. I may get into that a little more as the broadcast goes on, but it's not. What's your take on it?
So mine will be twofold. Like I know you did the statistics on there now, and I agree with KB as well. Like the age gap, the age difference is like something we need to focus on here because we do know that the human brain doesn't fully form until it's 24 years old.
Mhm.
So those decisions that are made or they're making, they really don't understand the ramifications thereof. So going twofold, you go into the juvenile system. So I can't speak for everywhere else, but I say here in Florida, for instance, it's like a point system when it comes to like juveniles being incarcerated. They have to build up points. Now, maybe what's more different from the juveniles now to the juveniles maybe in my age, or I can't even say that because they even knew in my age. Like when they knew it's a point system, they knew they were going to be released.
Yeah.
Like even the judge would know they like, you know, like I would want to keep you. I think you sometime would do you some good, but unless it was really egregious, they knew they didn't have enough points. They would go back out and they would commit another crime, or do what they want to do. I had a young man in particular. Of course, can't give his name out, but did my best. Really tried to work my best with this young man. And I actually I came to a point where he was doing things so dangerous that I actually had to advocate for him to stay in DJJ, like the detention center, because if he didn't, he was going to hurt somebody. Or somebody was going to hurt him. I couldn't get him to stop. I negotiated for I negotiated for an ankle monitor several times. He would cut it off, and then he would get lost. And again, I don't know in other states, but here, as a case manager, that's your responsibility. Then he's a runaway. Now, as a runaway, as a case manager, that means you have to make weekly attempts or processes to try to locate him. That means you take away from all your other kids and parents on your caseload because you're trying to locate this particular child. And you have to. It's almost like you become a bit of an investigator. You got to look in old neighborhoods. Never mind if you've been in foster care several times, you got to go back to those foster neighborhoods and try to see if he made any friendships there. And so you're making this loop. You're going around. You're trying to find this young man before he does something wrong. All of a sudden, you get a call in the middle of the night. Hey, they got him. They're taking the DJJ. You're gonna be up for. You got to get up there and represent for him and see what happens. But to go back from all that, right? We're dealing with the youth and the kids in there. The system itself, even the DJJ, the younger children's incarceration, right? And they teach you this, although it's not as loud as it should be now, is that we no longer try to rehabilitate. We just try to punish.
Oh.
And that's where we're losing.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we lose them. That's where we lose young adults. Because like that wasn't what prison was supposed to be for. Prison was supposed to be for you made a mistake. They're saying we're a nation of laws. You broke those laws. This is the penalty for breaking that law. Once you get out, you get to go. You get to start. You get to start your life anew, and that's not what's happened. If they're in prison, because it's no longer about rehabilitation. If they're in there, then what happens? They tend to become better criminals.
Yeah. Yep.
To what you're saying, S-Dot, do you feel like the fact that the rehabilitation aspect has went away and is strictly for punishment for the most part, do you think that has something to do with when the youth get out, they either are the same or they get worse?
Absolutely. Then we're gonna think about this, right? Then we have a cultivated culture, right? That if it's a young man, he becomes hardened by that.
Yeah.
And other young men are attracted to his hardness because society has told us we can't be sensitive, not be soft. So I want to be hard like that. Well, you can't get hard like that unless you go to prison. Now, that's a hell of a statement to make, right?
Yeah.
But that is the example that you see. And then within our culture, we've cultivated that, and it's supposed to be. It started off being like the hardness was supposed to be like, I'm not gonna let it keep me down. I'm gonna keep pushing. Mm-hmm. But then it turned into that ability to do that turned into door after door being slammed in their face, no opportunities to have a job, no opportunity. So they're in prison twice. You're locked up in an institution, and then when you come out, you're treated like you're still in that institution.
Yep.
And if you have an individual that can't eat, don't know where they're gonna sleep, and no money in their pocket, whatever result that you left them with.
They're desperate.
Right.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, our entertainment, and this is a big one for me, our entertainment has latched on into that. And that entertainment is now reality. We didn't turn that off. It used to be you could watch a movie and you'd be like, it was just a movie. Now we have us watching movies pretending as if it's life.
Yeah.
And that's what our youth are inundated by. That's what our youth tends to be inundated by those images and that information. And I want to say this too, before we move to, I don't blame parents. I don't completely blame parents for that. And this is why. I want to say that this is why. I believe all three of us, right? We come from a generation where a parent or parents could work a 9-to-5 job, pay for the mortgage, pay for the car notes, and maybe a summer vacation.
Yep.
Right? 9 to 5. So 9 to 5, you know what that means? That means that you get up at a certain time, you get off at a certain time. So that means you can interject your children in the sports, you can be more involved in their life, you have them out with their homework, so on and so forth, just more present there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now we're in a situation now, because we have not regulated any type of finances or trying to, and this is where the political pugilist thing come in, you know what I'm saying? We talk about inflation, for instance, right? Everything costs more. So for someone to try to provide more for their family, they work more.
Yep.
I was doing that before I got my degree. I was doing 14, 16 hour days. Because I was like, I wanted to make sure my son had what I didn't have and all this stuff right here, and I'm exhausted, but I had zero relationship with him. Other than correcting bad behavior.
Mm-hmm.
That, you know, and that, so I that's why I say I don't completely blame parents, because parents haven't been parented, and that generation between us and them and the ones coming up after us, that's never been discussed. It's never been talked about. It's never been rationalized to say, well, why is it like that? Because what we often do, or I shouldn't say what we, but I am going to say we, because we in this together.
Yep.
What we often do is blame the parent. But where the parents at? My child wouldn't do that. That's tough. That's tough. Because the parent told you, well, I was on my third job. You need compassion for that? You know what I'm saying? There's no compassion. There's no pocket for that. There's no pocket for that. So that's why I feel like, as much as our youth are, unfortunately, what's the saying they say? Hurt people. If you cut and you hurt, you tend to bleed on others.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Wounded, yeah. So
the system has continually cut, slashed, and ripped on us, and now it's bleeding on the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to find a way. We have to find a way to stop. First of all, stop that cutting. Then we got to address the healing part of it to make sure our children know that's already got that blood on, that they can heal too. But that's what I hear, that the system itself is draconian and needs to be revamped. And one more thing before I end that. So we talk about, and I know we talk about a larger age group, because actually what I do now, I'm a pre-release case manager, which we deal with re-entry programs for prisoners who have been incarcerated. But I want to say this. And you guys may know, our audience may know, do you know that prisons are on the New York Stock Exchange?
Yeah, I did know that.
Now, put that in context. People are making a gamble that somebody is as sure as they're going to return back to prison, and they're going to make money off of that. About the incarceration of another human being. That's a tradable stock. That means whether it rise or fall, somebody's going to make some money off of that. And what I tell some of the guys I do before they get out is I let them know is, like, they have a bunch of these blue uniforms. They wear blue in Florida. They have the blue uniforms, and I tell them this: it's 1,000 of those. So what does that tell you? Somebody's betting against you. So it's your job to make sure they lose their money. And I would tell young men that too, that's in the DJJ system. But yeah, that's kind of with me when I hear that. That's what I think about.
And when we talk about these age brackets, it saddens me to see how young, this revolving door starts with a lot of these youth, because it was saying that more than 500 are no more than 12 years old. More than 69% are 16 years of age or older. In 2020, 424,300 arrests were under the age of 18. 100,000 violent crimes were youths between the ages of 12 and 17. Now, when you speak to kids and when you're helping kids and things like that, and KB, you can answer first.
Mm-hmm.
What do you normally find about the home life of these youth? And right now we're talking about the ones that are tied up in this system here. What's the home life like?
Well, even excuse me, kids that are not struggling in the system, there is a breakdown starting right away. And a lot of that has to do with that they're not being heard, that they're not being taught how to process their emotions in a way that's going to serve them. And I had to learn, I spent a lot of my parenting career as a single parent and working. And I wanted to back up what SDOT said. It's not always the parents. It's, what is getting to us as human beings is, it's society. It's things the neighbor kids are saying. It's things that are happening in the household. It's a plethora of things that come together in this perfect storm that has children doing what they do, but it's not always the parents. So I wanted to say that it isn't always, because being raised with 4 brothers, I can tell you there were no angels and they had a 2-parent household. Okay. And, but anyway, I feel like the one thing that I have learned, if there's one thing that I could extend to any child that crosses through my threshold or makes it into my presence, and that would be my undivided attention. Because when I sit with them and they know somebody's listening, and I've had that same experience where you gentlemen were talking about, where you can tell that guard's up, and that guard happened for whatever reason. And when that guard is up, when I know if I can sit with an open heart and genuineness, like Estot was talking about early, or one of you was talking, I think it was Estot, was talking about being genuine. When you can be in that genuine space, their heart is going to feel that. And it may look like this. And for the people on wisdom, it's just stoic. You don't know that you're reaching their heart, but your energy is going to reach them, and they're going to want to be around you. And I feel like as individuals who have a grasp on kids, or have some wisdom to share, or have some, mentorship, I believe it is our duty to share that with any kid that comes across our path. So I believe that we should become the mamas and the papas to the children that may even have the biological ones, but need us, right? So for me, I've had this experience so many times in raising my kids, but where the one kid comes in, and I know that it's tough for that one. And I maintain that spot of, like you were talking about, genuineness, clarity, honesty, mixed with hugs if it's appropriate, because that people can get weirded out about that as well. Because just knowing and just hugging them sometimes and saying some flip remark like, you always got a place over here, you can always sit at my dinner table, those type of things matter, and they take root in a way that I think we don't realize that they do. But my mom was like this, and I think that's where what I observed from is that she was she was everybody's mama. We had the Safeway clerk over to Thanksgiving one night, the grocery store clerk. She says, "Oh, by the way, Linda from Safeway is coming." We're like, "Okay, Mom." She would go every Friday and have breakfast with this homeless man, Steve. She would take him to a little breakfast place. This was my mom. So I watched this from afar, and she was, different because she was raised in a different time period. But I took the best that I got from her, and I started integrating my own in there. And I just think I'll just return back to what I started with, is that the listening ear tells someone they matter more than we can ever possibly imagine.
That's so true. What do you think about that, Estat?
Completely agree. Completely agree. One of the skills I think that I've been good at is active listening, and in dealing with the youth, like that's what it is. Because I think what happens in different households, right? They're inundated with emotions, but they have no filter.
Yes.
From anger to happiness to joy to trauma to to anger, to hunger, to, you know, they inundate with all these things, and they don't have that filter, you know, that filter there. And I think we probably come from a generation where our parents did a real good job with that filter. Like, I never knew how much money we didn't have,
Yeah.
but there were times like we didn't have any money. You know, so we didn't have any money, but they created a filter around me, like, you focus on being a child, and I'll be the adult here. You know, like, and I think that's really important. I think we kind of missed that. And because they have no filter, they are so vulnerable, man. They're so vulnerable because even still as a child, as a youth, man, you're such a sponge. You just soak up everything around you. And if you don't know what to wring out, you know what I mean? Like, you just take it all in and it just gets all mixed up. So when you're dealing with them, like, I believe KB is spot on when you're dealing with them, you know, being genuine and consistently there for them. You know what I'm saying? You got the same consistent message, right? You celebrate, you know what I'm saying? You celebrate their victories, and if they got a loss, you tell them it ain't that bad. You there to tell them it ain't that bad. But like, I remember plenty of times when I had kids, they'd have a F in the class. They get a C, and I celebrate that C like it's an A. You know what I'm saying? I'm busting the door. I say, whoa, I heard you had to turn around. Let me see this. Let me see this. You know, but those things are needed. And I again, when I go back to my feelings of kind of sorrow for parents, I've literally seen parents just exhausted. They're present, but they're exhausted. You know what I mean? Because they too they didn't pick up that emotional filter. So they don't know that they're trying to do the best they can with what they got. And they just need a little direction, a little understanding. And I think, King, you and I have talked about this on posts before. What I think is really detrimental to that is you have what's the word I'm looking for here? No representation of what a family looks like anymore. Like, you know, like we had particular shows, like, and I'm gonna say this is gonna be controversial, but I'm talking about the show, not the cast, right? I use the Cosby Show as an example. All the time. Like, that was an example of a family working together, just being a family. But in the context of relating to everyday things that happen, and most often you never saw the parents hit their children. But what you did see them have a conversation with them. And sometimes they went as far as to be like, okay, I told you, I knew you was gonna make that mistake. And I knew it was gonna end up right here. So I know what I already need to say. And we just don't have those examples anymore. No, we really don't have examples anymore. And I want people to make their money. Hey, man, I'm not a reality show person, but I get it. It can be compelling. You know what I mean? It can be compelling, but I wish we could have that opposite side to get the same attention, get the same funding. But then to go back to go back to the political pugilism, right? The way that we understand things financially or how we legislate things is why things are like that. And we are in a capitalist society, and there's nothing wrong with a capitalist society, so nobody go off on me about that. but at the root of that, right? But the root of that, the capital. I'm gonna put it this way: how much capital you have is directly a result of how much comfort you have. So your lack of capital gives you lack of comfort. Lack of comfort brings you stress. And if you don't know how to deal with that stress, it just goes out in other ways. Again, you're hurt, so you hurt other people, even if you didn't mean to. So yeah, and it's really focusing on the youth.
I think it's important to look at too how, especially now, there's so much that is centered around finances. A lot of the things that I may have gotten picked on about when I was a kid was little things like, oh, you wear glasses, or, oh, you don't have a haircut. Whereas a lot of these youth for the past 20 years, it's been, oh, you don't have that $200 pair of Jordans, or you don't have these $100 pair of jeans. So there's so much that's centered around money, to where I think that causes a lot of issues as well. Because like we were talking about Cosby Show, they were what we would look at as middle class. You know, you had one as a lawyer, one as a doctor, I guess, but they weren't filthy rich. but they had that family dynamic. And even when I think about Good Times, a show that used to come
Oh,
on,
yeah.
they were poor,
I love Good
Yeah.
Times.
but they were a fam. They had
Yeah.
that family youth. There was love there. There were, even though we eat oatmeal every morning, but you better do that homework. You better go to school. You know, you had to respect, you know, this house and your parents and your elders. So there's a lot of things that got lost when we got into this. I call it the bling bling bubble,
Yep.
where everything is just centered about how much money you have, or chasing that bag, or this and that. And that's fine. It is fine to be financially stable. But what is at the foundation? What's at the core?
Yeah.
What you thinking, KB?
Oh, KB's thinking this.
I said, KB finna go in.
Yeah. When we are looking to the outside world like that for our value, we're looking in the wrong place. And initially, I feel like that's what a lot of us do, because as the ego is formed, as we're growing up, the ego starts to be formed between the age of 6 and 12 years old as our brainwave states increase. So we start to process the outside world, not only from our higher self that we came here with, but also now this lower self. And based on these messages that we're getting in, that we're not enough or we're too much, that's the nutshell, okay? Then we're going to start to try to find things that make us feel like we're something and like we matter. So if we're looking for value in the outside world, right, it has to be my body, my biceps, my boobs, my this, my so, you know, my car, my purse, my whatever it might be. We're looking in the wrong places. My daughter said to me one day, she said to me, Mom, I'm so glad, and this is my 28-year-old, she said this probably 5 years ago, that you made me feel beautiful in Target and Old Navy clothes. Right? Because she grew up without, I remember she wanted a Juicy purse. That was the thing back then, Juicy Couture. And I, you know, we found one once at a, you know, and I was middle class, you know, owned my own business, whatever. But I also knew I didn't want her to identify with things. I wanted her to know her own value inside. So that's one point that I wanted to make about that. But I want to back up just a little bit, gentlemen, because we touched on this briefly, and I think this is so important. And I feel like this is shifting just based on this millennial generation I have behind me, and now the Z's, which is my younger one. I'm watching this start to shift, but it's like just in the beginning stages of it. And I would love to hear what you guys have to say. Now, again, my background is 4 brothers, no sisters, neighborhood full of boys. And I was very much in observance about what was going on with their emotions and things like that. And I learned at a young age that what you guys had touched on is that, first of all, emotions are a normal part of human existence. They're actually the emotional guidance system, which is just as valid as the cardiovascular system or the neurological system or the skeletal system. It's a system designed to help us navigate through life and determine what's working and what's not working. But you can hear, I have a talk on wisdom about this where I was going off, because we need to be able to teach our boys, because girls, it's a little acceptable, but boys are not allowed to have any emotion but anger. Okay. Now that's a nutshell, right? They're allowed to get mad because that's manly and it's all these things.
Yeah.
But they are hurt. They are sad. They are grieving. They're ashamed. They're embarrassed. They have all the gamut of emotions as they're supposed to, because they're a human being. So I feel like the more space we can give our boys coming up to have an emotion and not be told the P word, or that they're a sissy, or whatever it might be, or suck it up, which is probably one of the worst things we can say, because yes, at some point, if someone's going on and now, we're gonna be like, all right, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, snap out of it. I've had to say it to my female kids, right? However, if they're in a pity party, however, providing that space for the emotion, it literally takes 60 to 90 seconds for the energy of a dense emotion to pass through. If we allow it to. If we don't allow the energy of that emotion, like anger, frustration, whatever it might be, pass through, it's going to store in the body. And likely at some point, it's going to come out in a blow. Okay. So I think a large part of this is is really just allowing for emotions, for God's sakes. Let people feel and not be afraid of children's emotions, because kids are going to have them just as much. And they're going to get mad, and it's going to look like they're mad at us, and they're going to get intense, but they're just releasing the toxicity out of their body.
And a lot of times I think it comes off like that too, because a lot of times they don't understand what they're feeling. They don't know why their body's tingling and they're seeing red. You know, they don't know how to handle certain emotions. And my youngest son, I made a video for him today because his mom and I talked, and he's dealing with his own things as an 11-year-old. And I thought, okay, I don't want to get in front of him and have this conversation and it feel like I felt when I was 11 talking to my dad about things, because my dad was larger. And so there was already a little fear there, like,
Yes.
oh, well, can I say A, B, or C and da, da, da. So I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to make him a video and I'm going to send him this video. And he can sit in the comfort of his room. He can have his safe place and he can watch. And I speak directly to him. But one of the things that I made sure that I say it over and over in this video is I was telling him, son, don't ever be afraid or embarrassed to talk to me about anything. Because I know that I wish, and my dad was amazing father, still is to this day. But I did not feel growing up like there was an open door policy to just talk about any and everything that I wanted to talk to with my father. Now, I don't know how I would have turned out if it had been, but I do know that because it wasn't, I went out elsewhere to try to figure out these feelings and these thoughts and things like that. And a lot of the places I was going to were to people that didn't know themselves, or they want you to think that they knew, so they'll tell you just anything.
Yep.
And so I say that to say it is very important, as you were saying, to make sure they understand that, hey, this is a safe place. Be comfortable to tell me whatever you have to tell me. And I don't understand this part either. I don't know why, as each generation goes on, it's like none of us can ever believe it when someone older than us tells us, I've been there before.
I know.
My elders used to say it when I was growing up. I'm like, yeah, right. You don't know what I'm going through. We say it to ours, and it's like they just can't fathom that we've been that age or done these things. What do you think, Esdot?
So I think you spot on with that. I don't know if it's something in the cortex of our minds that just feel like we just not gonna take that. You know what I mean? Like to do that. But to touch on that, but I want to go back to what KB said about when we talk about how our children tend not to be, for lack of a better term, and this is a term my buddy always use, emotional intelligence, right? It's something that probably has develops over years, probably even decades. You probably get it in decades, is what your emotional intelligence comes through. But I want to say this. I think one of the reasons why our children suffer from that is that we, for some reason, began to denigrate what it was to be a teacher. Teachers used to be one of the most honored professions there were, because they were educators, and we used to have respect for education. Now, what I feel like what has happened through generations, right? Because even as teachers, they only taught what they knew. I feel like we're being 1,000. I believe 90% of teachers only taught what they knew. Now, knowledge has expanded more, and there's easier ways to get it. And because we're able to do that, it's kind of like we belittle intelligence or what a teacher would have to bring to the table, right? And when we did that, we didn't keep up with that. So we didn't pay the teachers any more money. We didn't try to look out for them anymore. We didn't try to help our school. We've been telling ourselves for the last 5 decades that children are our future, and yet somehow we decided that children don't deserve to have food in school.
You breaking in?
I'm breaking it out. And I hope that's in my Wi-Fi. I'm sorry, bro. Can you hear me now? Good
Yeah, I
now?
think there's a
Okay.
kid somewhere messing with your stuff, but
Okay.
yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, he don't want me to say all this. But I just go back to that. Like we stopped with the educating. We stopped appreciating the education, which was a help to emotional intelligence. Because I can't tell you how many times me as a small child, I was fat. Well, I know it's a bad term now, but I had to get clothes out of the husky section. And I would have some tough days. I had some tough days. And it was always a teacher to touch me on my leg and say, Sean, are you okay? I needed that. Even just that. Like she said, that's 60 seconds of dense emotions of embarrassment, hurt, pain, and all the things on the filter. It's okay, and it's going to be okay. And I had to be reminded of that. And we don't have teachers that do that now.
No.
For a myriad of reasons, right?
Myriad.
But one of the biggest reasons I think that is because you didn't have an old guard to teach the new guard. The old guard just like, man, I got to get out of here. I don't know what y'all do. I'm retired. So then you bring a new guard in. Because I never forget this. I can use myself as perfect. I was a dad that tried to be, and this is going to go into what you were saying on the end of what you were saying, King. I was a dad that was trying to be present for my son. So like me and his mother would split the school field trips. We would alternate them because I wanted to be present. And quite often, I was the only dad. I was the only dad, but that was important to me, and I could tell he loved it. You know what I'm saying? The kids, and I was in much better shape than the kids didn't know. But I remember he had to tell them, no, my dad's not an NFL football player. You know, I was in that bling area. I had a nice chunky chain, you know, but I was present. I was there. But I remember I met a teacher. She was younger than me. I think she was like 23. And not to say she couldn't do it, you know what I mean? But it just kind of sunk into me at that particular time. And we need teachers, need to have them. But she was at a young age, and I was just like, and I just remember my teachers you know, we don't have an idea of how old they really were, but I just thought my teachers were all 40, 50 years old. They could have been in their 30s for all I know. But that, you know, like, but it's just that. And I noticed that. And to go back to what you said, King, like in dealing with my son, right? My father was vibranium. He was hard. And I couldn't understand it when I was young. But as I got older and me and him developed a relationship and he talked and he shared, and I got to understand, I got to look behind the veil. My father passed away in 2019. My father he had 4 boys with my mother, and he had another 4 outside children. And my father worked split shifts to make sure he took care of his children and paid his child support. He was always tired, so he was always angry. And I didn't understand it. I didn't understand why he was always angry. I thought it was because of my fault.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the case. And then we talked to understand it, but that's what he was. So, and part of when I was raising my son, part of me took on that vibranium role. Like I was hard, I was, disciplinary with my son, so on and so forth with him. And it wasn't getting anywhere. One time he had done something wrong. I used physical correction, and I thought I figured out myself. I think my bracelet popped, and I was like, I took it too far, and I felt bad. I really felt bad. I always felt bad when I did, but I really felt bad at the time. And I was like, I'm not gonna do this again. So from that point, the switch kind of turned to, okay, it's not so much about being your friend, but I think it's a better way of doing it. And from that point, it went on to me and my son having more of a better relationship. It was jovial at times. And it did open to go back to what you said. I wanted him, it was very important for him to know that he could talk to me about anything. And I wasn't going to drop a hammer down on him, right? He wasn't a nail, so everything couldn't look like a hammer to me. So I had to build that up with him. And we have this back and forth, this jovial kind of relationship that we have now that we didn't have before. And I know that was because I was willing to put in that time to, I bridged the groups. You know what I'm saying? Like I want you to understand what to the best of my ability, what a man is and what he is to be in this society. But in the same token, though, you need to be who you're gonna be.
Yeah.
Be who you be. But I want you to be respectful and honorable to other people. And if you have some kindness, make sure you share it with somebody else. And if you do that, I'm good. And another thing I had to learn to do was I had to let him know I was proud of him, whatever he did. I didn't want to
Yeah,
put an emphasis on him. He had to be like what I did or do what I do. I made sure I was proud of him, whatever he did. And I
Yeah.
express that to him every time I get a chance. And
and
I'll say
see,
this: I go this far to do this too. I let my son know I love him at a young age, and I continue to tell him I love him every day.
oh yeah, and that's
Yeah.
very important.
Yeah.
I don't want it to seem like when I say certain things that I don't want anybody to get the wrong picture of my father, because a lot of the stuff that we're hitting on, I have to go back to when I was a kid but I've told people before, when I was from as young as I can remember up until I was about 17 years old, and I remember my father verbally saying I love you.
Mm.
And now it's different now. I mean, he says it every day now. But when you were talking about not having to always be the hammer too, my dad that way. Tell people I don't feel like you have to use physical discipline get to your kid, and this is why. Out of all of the whippings, spankings, whatever you want to call them that I got, the one that hurt the most was when my dad didn't touch me at all, and he looked at me and said, "I'm disappointed in you."
Oh, the disappointment still. Oh,
Man, let me tell you something. Him saying that hurt worse than anything physical that he had ever done to me. And so that in itself, I knew from a young age that words are powerful, emotions are powerful. When you have someone, and that's why I talk to my kids, I always talk to them, because when you have someone that you know for a fact loves you, and someone that you know for a fact only wants what's good for you, when they're telling you something that has let them down, it stings a little more. And also on the flip side of that, when they're building you up, it matters a lot more. And speaking about fathers, I'm gonna read this. And this is crazy. More than 20 million kids don't have fathers in the home. More than 20 million.
Damn.
Millions more have dads who are physically there, but not emotionally there. Because, and I know this, I've seen men before that think that all they have to do is show up.
Mm-hmm.
Like they literally would say, "Oh, well, I'm there, so I'm a good dad." What do you guys think about those stats? Why do you, if you can give a little bit of insight on why do you even feel like it's that way? What are some of the factors that cause it to be what we have over 20 million children that don't even have a father in the home?
Mm-hmm.
KB?
Well, I want to go back just a little bit to say something to both of you gentlemen, and that is that many times we parent how we were parented at first. And I did the same thing. I would swat my first two kids when they were growing up. And then I realized, I'm not sure if you did, King, but I was listening to SDOT, then I was like, there's got to be a better way than this. There's got to be a better way. And I want to say, first of all, this is what's required from us parents, is a willingness to grow. It's a willingness to learn, because guess what? They might be little teeny tiny babies or little toddlers or, tweens or whatever. We're teeny tiny parents. We don't know what the bleep we're doing. Yeah. We're brand new at this thing, right? Yeah. But the best thing is that I heard once, and this was amazing to me. I was reading a parenting book. It stood out to me like a beacon, and it said, apologize to your children if you've made a mistake. And I was like, that thought never even crossed my path. And I say that innocently because my parents never apologized to me. So it wasn't in my parenting repertoire. So I remember one time doing something, feeling bad about it, and going, well, here, I'm going in. And I went into the room because my first two were 19 months apart. I said, hey, guys, I apologize for XYZ. And they're just sitting there like almost laughing at me. And I said, not in a bad way, but I said, was not okay. That's not cool. That's unacceptable, blah, blah, blah. And they both got the most loving looks on their face. They're like, it's okay, Mama. And I was like, okay, it's not okay. However, what I was talking about still stands because they weren't doing XYZ.
Mhm.
And the tired, the stressed, and the things. And so, I probably yelled at him or something. But it became a conversation rather than a dictatorship. It became like, okay, here's how it needs to go. We started to form this bridge from that point forward. But I also wanted to point out that, King, you were talking about, sending your son a video, and I wrote here on the screen, that's creative parenting. And I love that because all three of my kids required different things. And so I had to get creative about how I was going to handle each one. They're three different personalities. So, and some of them had different fears than the other one, and genders and things and stuff. And so I had to learn, but here's what I figured out. If you're there and you're present, you want to be present, it doesn't require as much as we think it does. Because I remember when my first husband was home with my eldest, and she was a terrible two, holy moly. And he would be trying to get things done because he's type A and he's got to constantly be moving. And he'd call me up at work and he'd be like, I'm going crazy. She's driving me nuts. And I said, stop what you're doing. Give her 20 minutes. Set a timer on your clock. He would hang out with her for 20 minutes and she would be satisfied. And she would go about her little toddlering stuff, but she needed her daddy's attention for 20 minutes. So later in life, when my first husband used to take sometimes my youngest, long story there, but they'd go to Home Depot and they go do stuff. And he would say, she's doing that same thing, but you know what I did? I stopped and I gave her 20 minutes. Now this is 10, 12 years later. And he goes, and it worked. So a lot of times as parents, we're carrying around a lot of guilt and shame too, that we can't be that 24/7 stay at home parent, rah, working mom my whole life. Right. And my kids still turned out good. They had their pitfalls. Don't get me wrong. We're not perfect by any means over here, by any means. But the foundation that was formed by my willingness to show up to them, even if it was just for 20 minutes, and just say, I got 20 minutes. I don't care if I need to go to bed. I have 20 minutes. I know I have to go into this function, but I have 20 minutes. Whatever it might be, I have that 20 minutes of pure listening to those kids. That matters more than we can possibly say. But also, I really wanted to say to Esdot, what you're talking about, I'm sure King should have you said the same thing. You're on mute, by the way. I don't know if you know that, King. You think, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I muted because I felt the cough coming on.
Okay. So, what I've seen with all three of us is what you guys know who Ayanna Van Zant is.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, love her. Just love that woman. But she talks about breaking the pathology. And so when we're willing to break the pathology by looking back at our youth and saying what worked for us, but what didn't work. What didn't work doesn't mean we have to hate on parents, doesn't mean we do anything, but we can actually question ourselves about, you know what, I really like that my parents had this, but man, this over here, I sure could have used this.
Yeah.
And we can actually start to break the pathologies because both my younger brother and I, he called me up one day and he goes, God, Chris, and he is like the most beautiful human being, my younger brother, just loving, giving, awesome, amazing father. He goes, I'm yelling at my kids all the time. I don't want to be dad. And I said, Joe, he's 3 years younger than me. And I said, Joe, I was doing the same thing. And we both mine was a little sooner than him because I had kids sooner than him. But he goes, I said, I know exactly what you're talking about. And we broke the pathology. So I just want to honor you two gentlemen for doing that same thing. Is being willing to be creative in your parenting, showing up with your heart, being willing to learn and grow. Because like I said, we're teeny tiny baby parents trying to figure this thing out. And kids are resilient. And the thing they want the most is us. So even if we make mistakes, they're going to forgive us and we can course correct and keep going forward.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate that. It's very touching. I'm honored that you would put me in that bracket. I really do. But knowing what I know, King, the number, it should be shocking, but it's not, just based on stuff that I research and look into. And it's another one of those layered problems, right? You can go to massive incarceration. You can go to the inability for two individuals, a male and a female, to have enough emotional intelligence to agree to co-parent. or actually have a relationship or try to understand each other, which unfortunately some people have been taught to use the child against someone in the relationship, which further pushes them away from not being in a home. You know, like even if it's not your home, you can still be present there. That was something me and my son's mother had to work out. Like we tried, it's not. Let's hey man, we are poisoned together. Let's just do what's right for him, right? You know, but not having a willingness to do that, not wanting to do that, not looking at it that way, the traps and falls, the problems, the unrecognized things going with mental health, the unrecognized things going with physical health, all those things I feel like will factor into that number that you gave to why men, you know what I'm saying, why fathers aren't in households. And I believe, and I don't, it's like I know it's not female bashing or anything like that, but that is true, something that we need to talk about, to address. Like, how can we better communicate amongst each other to make sure that that's not the case?
Yeah.
Like, okay, we didn't work. That's cool, and we can, and we had to let my son know that. Like, you know, like, but I want to believe she does the same thing for me that I do for her. Like his mother, I do the same thing for his mother. I hope she does it for me. We don't talk ill of each other. That's not on him. That's not on him to know that. As far as your mother, if you believe your mother's a saint, he's a saint. We're gonna leave it at that. You love your mom, ain't nothing's gonna ever change that. And I'm gonna be your dad, and I'm not going anywhere, so nothing's gonna change that either. So I think we have been able to do that with each other, and I think that's huge. And we had to get to that point, but I think in the backbone of both of us, we did both have, and I hate to sound like a cliche, we did have a 2-parent home. Both of us did, to a degree. And they may have been dysfunctional at times, but it did exist, right? And that's something major. But when I hear that number, it should be shocking. It should be unbelievable. How could it be that? But then when I think about how many trip falls, hurdles, and obstacles that happen, that either are, and I want to say this, I want to be really clear, self-inflicted and non-self-inflicted things that we're doing to each other as human beings, that number doesn't really surprise me that much, bro. Unfortunately, it just doesn't.
And I think, not to cut you off, Estai, but I think what you said about the conversation that you and your son's mom had, that is extremely important, because I think that there are too many parents that are parenting off of how they feel about the other parent.
Yes.
And not parenting off of what the child needs. I tell people, I sometimes talk about my kid's mom to people, and they be like, "You mean y'all don't fight, or y'all ain't doing it?" I'm like, no, you have to have enough love for yourself, for one, and for that child to say, okay, like you were saying, just because we didn't work doesn't mean that our parenting won't work. We didn't work in a relationship with you and I, but we can work in a relationship toward raising this child to be a productive citizen and to be all that they can be. But what we tend to get is either the mother or the father can't stand the other one, so they feel like, okay, I won't even come around to see the child because I don't want to see you, or I won't see the child or do for the child because I know that'll hurt you.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate. It's crazy, because that's what it is a lot of the times. I've had conversations with guys before, and not a lot of them. I think it was 2 guys in particular. And I straight up asked them, I was like, bro, why you don't see your kids? I'm asking why you don't see the kids. He said nothing about the kid. He talked about the mom.
Yep.
Man, F that B.
Yep.
F that B. I asked you about your kids. I didn't say nothing about the mama.
Yep.
So that tells me a lot of times that's what it is. One of the parents don't like the other one, and then, the kids suffer.
Yeah.
And I want to say this too, that, and I think a lot of times what happens with parents, and it goes back to what KB was saying too. So if we choose to, right, we constantly evolve. And if we evolve, sometimes we evolve past relationships.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like that person that you like, we was doing that together, but now I'm doing something different. You going that way? That ain't gonna work. Like it's just not gonna work. So, and to be able to do that and accept the fact, and then to evolve and still want the best for that person. Why would you not want that? And here's one thing I would say: if you ever love somebody, why would you want something bad to happen to them?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Even if it didn't end up, however it ended up, whatever way, if you love that person, why would you want anything bad for them? At the end of the day, you want them to be happy.
Yes.
And it's unfortunate that happened. It wasn't with you, but at least you got it. Because what is a human being without happiness? And that helped me with this is like, and I had this gentleman on our show. His name was Warren Jones, and I keep stealing his line from him, so I have to keep giving him credit. But he said it very, very clearly. You can't be what you can't see. So like I felt like me and his mom had an obligation to be like, then because if I'm looking at the percentages, right? If he was to get with the young lady, there was no guarantee that they was gonna stay together. You know what I mean? Like if he was to have a girl, get in a relationship and have a child, there's no guarantee they'll stay together. But if he had nothing to show that could work, where would he be? How would that end up? It would end up him just being another part of that 20 million. So it was an opportunity for us to interject that kind of that showing to him that like your mom and dad together. Nah, well they get along fine. They get along fine. Like and it's just such a foreign concept. Like when you say King, you talk about fuck that bitch. Like I can't. And one thing with us again with that emotional intelligence as men, if we haven't evolved yet, right? When I hear that, and it's nothing against the brother, I don't know, he might be a great guy, for all I know. But when I hear that I don't think you've ever sat and addressed the fact that you do something wrong in that relationship.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like if you can do that, then I think you look at it from a different standpoint. Because I can clearly say I wasn't the best baby's father. I mean, financially, I did. I was honor bound, did what I could there. But I was in my youth doing things I shouldn't have done. I had no respect for the truth, and that's why. That was one of the reasons why that relationship crumbled. Had no respect for the truth.
Man, I made so many mistakes, relationship wise. But even with all of that, and this is just me. I mean, everybody feels differently about their children, but I had so much love for my kids that negative thoughts about their mom never even entered my mind. Now, there were negative thoughts sometimes while I was in relationship with her, if she got on my nerves or something like that. But once the relationship dissolved and it was strictly about raising these kids, I loved them so much to where I didn't think to even feel anything negative about the mom, because I'm a firm believer in what you feel, it spreads out. And I honestly think that children can pick up on those energies and stuff like that. So, whenever I pick them up or whatever, I speak to their mom. Hey, how you doing? Do you need anything? I still help out when I can. I wanted it to look to them like they knew that we weren't in a relationship, but I wanted them to at least see that, hey, they're friends. My mom and dad are friends. They care for each other, because kids, and like the stuff that we're going over tonight, that tells us kids have an awful lot that they have to deal with.
Oh yeah.
There's an awful lot that they deal with, and now with technology and social media and all this other stuff, it's just coming everywhere. And that's one of the things I told my son. I was like, son, I know the feelings that you have right now, because I was 11. I was 11 once, and I know how hard it is to have certain things coming at you from every direction. Now, I only know it because I make it a point to know it now, because I didn't have that when I was 11 years old. Their house phone with the dial and 3 channels on the TV. That was about
one
as far as it went.
Simple.
Yeah, exactly.
Simple.
And the radio.
Basics. Yeah.
But now they have iPads, cell phones, all kinds of stuff. And it comes from everywhere. Even the cartoons on Nickelodeon now have some type of sexual undertones on some of them even. And so I'm like, they can't get away from it. What were you going to say, KB?
I just wanted to jump in here and talk about this because I have 2 divorces. My first divorce with the older kid's father, and At first, when we got divorced, I needed a minute. I needed some space. But we literally became, I'm doing air quotes, best friends. We were the closest of friends, no hanky panky, no, not so much as a hug and a kiss for 10 years post divorce, where the kids really were the primary importance here. And I believe this takes emotional maturity and an ownership of self. And like King was saying, the love that you have for your children, because it was the love that I had for my children. I knew that this was my adult problem, not theirs. And so I didn't let that bleed into them. But we had a 10-year run where my eldest two kids said to me one point, we don't feel like the products of divorce. Like you and Dad did that so well. You guys, we even went on vacation together with other partners. We had Christmases together. He would spend the night on Christmas Eve and have his new girlfriend or whoever. It was very amazing until the one who almost became or is his wife now, came in, and she didn't like it. She didn't like our friendship because she was insecure, but yet we got 10 good years under our belt. So that was great.
Yeah.
But then my second husband, who it was a different situation, right? It was a betrayal. It was abuse. It was a lot of things with him, and he abandoned the entire family, but mostly his own biological daughter for 7 whole years. Not one word, not one email, not one nothing. We had joint custody and everything. Then he came back in, and I had to take a breath, because I always said to myself, when he comes back in, he will be welcome. But I got to figure out my shit.
Yeah.
I cannot bring my stuff into this, because of course he left us homeless, basically. If you guys don't know my backstory. And so I was like, okay. And I worked on me so that she could have her father back. And this relationship could very slowly turn into what it is today. It took some time, but children want to know their other parent.
Yeah.
They want to know their other parent. And guess what, you guys? If you've got a really crappy ex, narcissistic, abusive, whatever, there's only a matter of time till that child sees that themselves. We don't need to come in and taint. And when they get to that age where they're like, mommy, daddy, so-and-so is doing this, then we can address it at that point. But to say you can't see them, they'll never understand that. They'll resent you. You'll be the bad guy. And we're causing harm to our kids. So, gentlemen, I need to boogie. I committed to an hour because I have some things I need to do, but I will tell you, you are beautiful human beings. It is my absolute honor and pleasure to be invited to this stage to share this conversation with you guys. And I believe more talks like this need to happen. Even if someone walks away from one sentence we say and it shifts their mindset, that means that their trajectory went from this to this. They changed paths with just that one sentence. So thank you. I honor you. Thank you for doing the work you're doing in the world. I appreciate you both. And hopefully someday we can have this party again.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Thank you for coming on. I truly appreciate you. There was a whole lot said in that hour that you notched out for us. So I truly appreciate you. And we'll definitely have some more dialogue like this in the future.
Okay.
And KB, thank you for your kind words. And I want to say this: it takes beauty to recognize beauty. So,
thank you.
Your soul recognizes ours. So, it's a pleasure to meet you.
To that.
Pleasure to meet you.
100%.
Thank you, KB. Gentlemen.
Bye.
Bye-bye. S. Dot, it's you and I. And now, first, let me ask this: do you have to go now?
I can give you some more time, bro. I give you some more time. You want to go a little bit more? What, maybe 15 more minutes?
Yeah, that's good, because normally on Wisdom App, what I do is I give them time to come on and say what they have to say, and do that. So I'm gonna say, anybody on Wisdom right now, if you want to come up and speak and ask S. Dot or myself any questions, now will be the time to do it. And let me also read some Facebook Live. How does the panel feel about adding conflict resolution classes and training to the education arena for our youth? I personally think that would be amazing to add those, because a lot of times when we're dealing with the youth, and that's what a lot of it is, they just don't know how to resolve conflict, or they don't know how to deal with the emotions that they have. We have Jason. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say I would too. I agree with that too, but I would also say I would hope that conflict resolution is not just only for the children, but for those who are going to deal with the children, as well as the officers, the teachers, the principals. Everybody has, like they need to be able to chime in on that. And if a school can have a nurse, they can have a therapist. But we're gone.
True. And we have two people waiting to come up. Jason Kente and Andrew Johnson, and now Charmaine. I'm gonna take Jason first because I think he was up here first. So I'm gonna bring Jason up and see what he has to say. And the other two that are waiting, please don't go anywhere because I'm interested in what you have to say as well. Good evening, Jason.
Thank God. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you, sir?
Thank you. Sorry, I missed everything. I just came, but I have been in youth ministry. I'm an ordained minister since 2011 as a minister of education. Taught at my church Christian school 2011. It actually drove me crazy, literally. I actually went to the psych ward, no joke.
Oh, wow.
But it was a generational curse in a sense because it was the fourth and final time. I thank God, and I hope it is the last time. But essentially, after that, I created the Think Freely Gifted program for kids that are high spectrum because as a high spectrum kid, I passed the gifted test in grade 7 as well as I student in grade 8, got 97% in grade 9 math. My dad, Bernard Humphreys, who was a scholarship winner from Antigua, they came to Canada on scholarship, asked me what happened to the other 3. So I got 100% in grade 10 math to make my father proud of me, and it wasn't really that hard. Okay, I got the highest marks in English, math, Latin, law, French, accounting, world issues. Graduated as valedictorian in my high school, and then I got 7 scholarships to the University of Toronto. And then I worked at Microsoft Canada. 1999, I had a vision, planned my whole career in one document. Target resume in 1999, went to the psych ward. Same psych ward as my dad. Centenary Hospital psych ward. I was diagnosed with genius illness, schizoaffective psychosis disorder. Try to speak a little bit slower. Okay, I planned my whole career in one document in the psych ward. And I still teach that to this day, to begin with in mind. Now, for the topic, because I have taught and now I teach online. The thing is, what I've found is I help young people win scholarships at my church. I was ordained in 2011 as youth minister of education. And, I have this program where I set up the scholarship program at the church. I resurrected the scholarship program and named it and promoted it. And I got about maybe 5 young people scholarships. One of the young people in the program got $25,000 scholarships. That's enough for her whole school in Canada. I know it's not enough for some expensive schools in the States. But what I found is the parents are the problem. And I know that people are going to say, oh, the kids are the problem. No, the parents are the problem. And the kids now, but the parents raise the kids. Look, my father taught me how to live. I'll do this quick 2.5 minutes. We'll tell you how I got 100% great to math. It's because my father, okay, when the kids don't know who their daddy is, right? They don't have a relationship with God, then they're running around in the street, okay? That's why they be shooting people and stuff, because they don't know who they are. My father, Bernard Humphreys, my father taught me how to live. My father taught me how to give. My father taught me to delight in doing what's right. My father taught me how to write and how to recite. My father taught me how to think. My father held me to not sink when I tried to stay afloat. When I was drowning, he threw me that life-saving rope. He to avoid dope, to never try sniffing coke. He taught me never to get drunk and to never start to smoke. My father taught me to instead get high on life, and he taught me that even when times were rough, if I followed his advice, I'd still always be ahead. I made my mistakes, but my father forgave and taught me to pray for forgiveness before I went to bed. My father was my coach and made me the MVP of baseball. His father taught me how to study and learn how to be, yet to never settle for a B when I got 97% in grade 9 math to Burton High School in Pickering, Ontario, Canada. My father asked me what happened to the other 3. So I got 100% in grade 10 math to make my father proud of me. My father taught me how to learn and earn my degree in lifeology. My father taught me how to see the goodness in his family and humanity. My father taught me how to live. My father taught me to forgive because he constantly had to forgive me. He taught me all that he could, and then he set me free. to explore humanity, even though he knew it would die someday. Because humanity would not always be how we all knew that humanity should be. My father loves me and taught me how to love, and knew that humanity would not always be as loving as he was to me. So my father sacrificed me. My father set me free. My father taught me to love him, and even those who hated me as much as he loved me, and to do unto all as that I would do unto me. My father on earth to my love, Bernard Humphreys. He was born May 15th, 1944 in Johnson's Point, Antigua, in the Caribbean. And he came to Canada on scholarship. And he died November 27th, 2014. I finished reading the Bible beside his hospital bed. I looked up and he died. So he was by my side when I was growing up. And that's why I did so well and stayed out of trouble, right? And I was by his side. God let me be by his side when he died. And I can tell you this, without my dad, I wouldn't have done so well. And my friends that didn't know who their daddy was, they didn't do so well. And the kids that I find these days, I can't be their dad, right? I try to encourage them, but this is the problem. If you don't know who your dad is, or your dad doesn't know how to parent, your mother can't do it alone. And a lot of the kids, they got this single mother. The mother's working hard. She's trying, but she doesn't know how to do everything by herself. She can't be a husband at the same time. She can't be a father at the same time as she's a mother. So the thing is, we have to have a community approach to parent the kids. And the thing is, people don't do that. They expect the teacher to do everything. And now they're saying in the States, I hear a Republican guy, well, a right-leaning guy, was saying that you have to arm the teachers. This is madness, okay? I'm telling you, I'm in Canada, okay? My dad walked into a random white people's house when he had dementia. He was 69. And they didn't shoot him, okay? They called 911. The cops came. They called me. And they said, your dad walked away from the old folks home. He's kind of confused. And he walked in a random white people's house. Nowadays, a 16-year-old gets shot when he rang on the wrong doorbell. It's madness. I'm going to tell you right now, you Americans are gone mad, okay? It's not more important than everybody has a gun. It's more guns than the people in the country. You guys have gone mad. I stand by that, because I hear people saying they got to arm the teachers. Then you're going to have students get shot by the teachers, and then you're going to have to do an investigation to see if the teachers are racist, or if the student deserved to get shot. And then teachers like me would get out of it. My girlfriend was in Georgia, my ex now. So I do have some experience because I was in Georgia with her. She didn't want to shoot. She's a minister. She don't want to shoot teachers. She don't want to shoot students. So the teachers like that would get out of it. And a lot of teachers dropped out of it. So the best is getting out of that, because they say, look, I can't take this.
Jason.
I can't take this. My kids are going to get shot. Like, I have to now be a good shot. You know what? It'd be ridiculous. I don't tell you this because I've said it. It's always funny, but it's serious because it's crazy. It's crazy. To the guy that had this podcast
Jason.
Then got an arm teacher. Look,
Jason.
Then you're going to have the teachers that like to shoot kids, right?
Yeah.
Saying that, or then they're going to say, oh, well, I want to form an FBI guy. I don't want Jason Kitte because Jason Kitte saw if he don't shoot well, he don't want to shoot guns. But Mr. Ross said he picked off two people that invaded the school last year. So everybody's going to request to form an FBI guy. And people like me, they're going to say, Jason, we're going to have to let you go because all the parents are, you don't want to shoot people. And, all the parents think their students are going to be safe in Mr. Rogerson's class because Mr. Roger, he has a good shot. He used to be FBI. You guys have gone mad.
Well, let me ask you this, Jason. Before you go, in 60 seconds or less, in your opinion, how do we get our youth back on track? In 60 seconds or less, because I have other people waiting.
There's 5 steps of freedom. I have it all in my websites. You have to start with the whole society approach has to say, look, we've gone mad. We like violence and guns too much. It has to be everywhere. So start with the video games. I'm building Christian video games by 2030. So I'm doing my part, but then the parents have to select the choices, to make the choices.
Sorry,
not
y'all.
give the kids the violent stuff, not watch violent stuff, not have the violent music. Back to the roots of, and I'm named after Kunta Kinte, so this is the thing. Everybody in society has to say it's more important that we have safety and peace.
Sheesh.
Then we be divided. You guys are the divided states of America. Come back to your senses. Forget about, or just at least get rid of the assault weapons, okay? It's not more important to be able to shoot off so many rounds like you guys are in the military, right? That's the problem. It's the values. Everybody's got to get back to the hardcore Christian values, not the titles, right? Not the titles that say you're a Republican or you're a Christian. The actual values that are common sense values where you care about family, you care everybody is united, because you guys are too divided. It's the divided states of America. When you guys become united and stop worrying about rights and being like attacking each other, then you'll solve the problem, because it takes a whole community approach. Thank you for having me.
Hey, I appreciate you, brother.
And I'm at thinkfreely.net, and my whole corporation is working on Christian video games by 2030. So if you want to support, you can go to thinkfreely.net, get the first chapter of my book course free. It's 25 years of my life. It teaches the 7 biblical principles of life that won me 7 scholarships, helped me retire as a millionaire last year. And now I invested the $1 million that I got into building Christian video games by 2030. Okay? Because we have enough violence, right? People letting the kids just grow up on violence and TikToks, and now they can't think straight. That's why. Okay?
I got you. I appreciate you.
Okay, Obi.
All right. Invest in that video game, or look for that video game in 2030. We have Andrew Johnson up here now. How you doing, Mr. Johnson?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Well, hopefully I won't stir up as much controversy as I did last week. I didn't know I was going to get attacked, but it's all.
You making me cough too much.
This particular topic is that we got there's a multitude of issues, but I kind of narrowed down to a few, and I'll make it short. First, the biggest problem we're running into is, like the last guy said, there's an influx of guns. So, before, in my era, I'm a Gen Xer, if we had a beef or disagreement, there's a potential for a gun to come around, but for the most part, not too many people had them. So you handle it like men. You either won the fight, lost the fight. Afterwards, you shook hands and went on about your business.
Yep.
But now what we're dealing with is part of the issue is we're having a generation. We've had multiple generations. Now we're on the generation coming up on generation probably number 3, where the head of household in the African American community is a woman. And that doesn't necessarily mean that she's not a good parent. It doesn't necessarily mean that she's incapable of doing the job, because she can do it. The problem is 2 parents are always better than 1. So
no argument for me on that one.
brain is the emotional side. So when we have a woman raising a son and she's in a house, women spend the majority of their time on the right side of the brain. So that's where the emotions are. So a boy is being brought up in that home, his first reaction is a right brain reaction. Negative emotion of anger triggers, which is a right side brain issue. There's no one to talk him down. A dad can talk him down. If you remember way back when in Boys in the Hood, when Lawrence Fishburne talked to Cuba Gooding Jr. and trying to talk him down from going to the street.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And, ultimately he ended up getting out the car. That's the difference when you have a dad in the house versus no dad.
I agree.
You see what I'm saying? That's critical, because even like if you look at it today, kids nowadays they don't even really fight or nothing. Like they jump you.
Yeah.
Like it's like 3 or 4 of them. They're not fighting like a one-on-one fight like we used to do. So they just get on and jump you. Because they're not trying to fight. And if that don't work, then they go get a tool. Yep. And so part of the issue is that we got to change that mindset. But the issue is that we got our women are going to have to stop having all these children out of wedlock. Because this in part lies the problem, because there's no male structure in the home.
Well, there's a lot of that. Can a lot of that be attributed to women just having the children out of wedlock, or men getting these women pregnant when they know they're not trying to marry them?
Right. Well, both are culpable. Men have if a man is running around having multiple babies by multiple different women, he's just as culpable as the woman is. And it should be held to to be perfectly honest with you, he should be held to a higher standard even than the woman is.
I
He's going to
agree.
be the quote unquote head of the household.
Yep.
So I'm
What
curious.
do you-
Like,
what do you think? Oh, I'm sorry, Andrew. Can I interject just real quick? Because S. Dot wanted to say something. Oh, I appreciate
Yeah.
you. No, I don't want you to go nowhere though. S. Dot want to say something to what you were saying.
Yeah, I just want to say that. So I do not disagree with 80% of what you're saying. But I am curious when we talk about, like you say, a young man having multiple children out of wedlock in different households. Is the problem that he's having those children? Or do you feel like the problem he's not present in those homes to be a father?
Well, here's the deal. You can only be in one household at a time. So, you know, you can't, if I got 4 kids by 4 different women, I
Right.
can't be there all the time. I can't
Right,
be in
but
the household.
but
So-
how you raise those children, how you raise your
I'm
children.
just bringing in a little bit, and that little bit may not be enough. You know, we need to see the thing that I talk about on my podcast thing is we talk about. I say men have to have 4 things. They have to have strength, maturity, decisiveness, and consistency. Well, if you're not in your home on a consistent basis, you're already missing out there on that one premise. So you can't. It's very difficult to be in that many households and expect your kids to sort of follow suit or be good or get your messages that you're trying to send. It's a little difficult. Now,
No, I
obviously,
actually think it's a lot difficult. I think it's
sometimes we
completely
live by
difficult.
exception, not the rule. So we'll find someone who did it, and then we'll say, "Well, you see, look, they did it. Why, you know?" And so we say, "If they did it, why can't I?" But they're the exception. They're not the rule. Most people are not going to have that outcome. So we
No,
have.
and
My thing is this: I'm putting a lot. I put more on the men who are making these babies than the women because they should know better. But the woman is the one who controls the sex. So she ultimately is the decider on who she's gonna, have sex with, who she's not gonna have sex with.
Yeah.
So I have to put some of the blame on her as well.
that's interesting.
Well, I appreciate you, Andrew, and once again, you had a plethora of insight on it, and a lot of it I do agree with. So I appreciate you for coming up again, especially after the Tissy 2 from the other week. But
Oh yeah.
yeah, but I appreciate you coming back, and hopefully,
no problem, brother.
hopefully you'll
I'll
keep
the next
listening.
caller, but keep up the good work, and I want you to. This is a good conversation, and hopefully we can get something out of it.
Oh, I appreciate you. All right, we got Charmaine coming up now. And then, well, while she's coming up, anything you want to add, S. I know you originally gave me 15 more minutes. I think I've got past that.
Well, I think Jason kind of cut into that. He had a lot to say.
Yeah.
I would just go. I hear what both the gentlemen are saying, and I think they do make some valid points. But I think it's a little rough around the edges with the actual solutions. I don't think they're just that cut and dry. I think they're as we spoke, there's layered conversations. Like there's layered conversations, and like he says, you know what I'm saying. He made, for instance, like he felt like the women should be more responsible. They control the sex, right? But if a man does not have a relationship with truth, does a woman really know who she's having sex with?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, so then it kind of flips back over to he, and then it's almost like if we continue to denigrate, and I feel like Jason kind of did this too. He kind of put everybody into a niche, and he kind of denigrated them all together. And it's like I don't think we're going to get to a solution like that. Like if you're just going to go put it that way, and it can only be that way, it's going to be very hard. So if you had a young man that did have, let's say he met 4 women and had 4 children from the women, I probably didn't mean to do that, but he did it. And if we're going to put him in that pocket, like, well, now that you've done that, you can't be a good father to those other 3 children. I think we got a problem there. Even though it can't be in the household, right? What you teach, what you imprint on, what you have to learn and understand. Even though I'm not in the house physically, your presence can be there if you're trying to do it for the right reasons. That's what I believe. So that's why I wanted to ask him about that. I think he made some valid points. There are some things that's needed. There's a structure that's needed within a household, but when we go to the blame game, we start pointing the fingers, like you point one finger, you got 4 back at you. So, and I think we have to ask ourselves that. And there's a reason why we as men operate the way we do. And he made a good notion. There are outliers. I agree. There are outliers. And we say you should be like them, but that's an outlier. And we need to focus on us as together as a unit, like all of us. We're not a monolith. Is the best way I put it.
Yeah, we definitely have to adapt to the situation, because it's not ideal to have children in a lot of different places. But once you know that's where it is, what do you do then? You know, we can't just say, oh, because I'm not in the household with the other 3, then I'm just not going to do anything at all. You know, we have to adapt to the situation and do the best that we can. There are a lot of men that have those type situations, and I think it goes back to what we were saying earlier with the relationship that you have with the mother. Because if the relationship is good with the mother, then you can have situations where the mom might bring child over while the other kids are there, or you interact with them. And like KB was saying, they were taking trips together as an entire unit and stuff.
That's
like
the goal.
That.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's the goal. Hey, Charmaine, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm doing dandy schmandy. Don't call me Randy. What?
So I have. I think a big part is that the father is not in the picture, and the reason why I say that is, the ones that I've come to know, like my cousin, he never had his dad in his life, but he was a little boy. Already talking about he wanted to be just like his dad. So his dad was always locked up. He was always in and out of jail multiple times. I mean, just pretty much he could not stay out of jail. And he, as a little boy, always said, I'm going to be just like my dad. I'm going to be in jail all the time.
Oh, wow.
And we kind of just looked at him like, yeah, right, he's just a little kid. He don't know what he's talking about. But he, for real, carried that throughout his life until now. He is in and out of jail. And I don't know why he would actually even think that would be something that was cool, or what the state of mind of him even thinking of he wanted to be just like his dad, just being in and out of jail. And he went to I think it was what is it for the little kids that are still underage,
juvenile detention.
He was like 12 years old, and ever since he was 12 years old till now, he's just been locked up in and out of jail. And he doesn't have a full relationship with his dad, but he knows his dad. If he wants to go talk to him, he can go talk to him. But he had it in his mind already that he wanted to be just like his dad. And I don't know why his mindset would be that at a young age, to just be like him.
Well,
but then.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, and that's just one point of the dad not being there for my cousin. The other point would be with my niece. And you were right when you said earlier, the reason why he's not in my niece's life is because of my sister. Pretty much, he wanted to see her suffer, I guess, in a sense, because he pretty much threw it in her face, saying, without your family, you wouldn't be able to make it. Without your family, you can't handle the kid by yourself. And he had said that in front of me, and I had to let him know, like, hey, with or without you, my niece is not going to never go without. And I just need you to know that. Because I didn't want him to think that, oh, well, I'm not going to be there for her so I can make you suffer and make you struggle because he's trying to prove a point, or he's trying to make my sister suffer. Yeah, but I just let him know, like, hey, you can do that if you want with my sister, but you're not going to do that with my niece. And I do hate it. I do hate it that he's not, because my niece loves her dad. Even though he's not in her life like he needs to be, she loves him. And it's sad. It's sad that she loves him to the fullest, because my sister never talks bad about him, even though she has all these bad bad thoughts and she wants to cuss him out at times, but she never talks bad about him to her because she wants her to make that decision on her own and see how her dad is on her own without my sister telling her how he is. It's just sad that some men are just not there for their kids because kids really do need their fathers.
Mm-hmm.
They really do.
They need them a lot more than it gets spoken about. What do you have to say to that, Esdot?
Well, I would be curious. Just it's a curiosity. You say he started when he was 12. How old is he now? Is she still there?
Cousin?
Yeah, the cousin who you said wanted to be just like his dad, or your nephew.
My cousin's like 40, about 41 years old.
Okay, so he's kind of in that bracket of me. So I think when I hear that, I can see why it would be so mysterious to you and your family. Why would he want to emulate that? And I think in the beginning of the show, we kind of talked about, unfortunately, it's very unfortunate about our culture, right? We have kind of glorified prison life as a mantra of toughness. And I think him being a boy wanted to always be tough and thinking his father had to be so tough to be in prison that he kind of followed suit and never. And I guess, unfortunately, you have pockets of our society that never teaches us, like that's not the route to go. Mm-hmm. Like, but we tend to, a lot of the things that we inundate our society with is that, it's not that bad. In the reality, it is. We just say it's not that bad. And I think as any boy would want to be like their father. I think he kind of unfortunately rolls into that, and it's sad to hear that you say that your niece's father is. He sounds like somebody who was hurt, so he's hurting people. And until he comes to the realization of that, it's really unfortunate that your niece has to suffer for that, because she, as you said, she loves him. She probably sees no fault in what he does.
He didn't have a great relationship with his parents, so it kind of just trickled down and is trickling down generation, I guess, because his parents weren't really there for him. And now I guess I'm not sure. Some people learn from that. When your parents are not there for you, they kind of say, "Yeah, I'm not going to do that to my kid." But guess he did. And like my niece, she has at her school, they have a sign saying father-daughter dances on Saturday. And so my sister said, "Hey, I just got a notice saying there's a father-daughter dance." And she's like, "I'm going to have to talk to her and just to see how she feels," because my sister does talk to her and just, talks to her when stuff with, has to do with fathers, and talks to her and just let her know, "Hey, how do you feel?" And kind of just lets her know, like, "Hey, everything's going to be okay," But she does talk to her. She wants her opinion. She wants her to talk to her, not just suppress her emotions. So, but yeah, it's kind of sad. It's like, and then I can't go because I'm not, her father. So it's kind of just sad to see stuff like that. When other little girls, they go and they're hugging their dads and they're doing stuff with their dads, and it's just like, it breaks my heart to see my niece. She's such a respectful little girl. And she loves people. I always say she's the little girl that's gonna try to save the world because she loves people. She wants to see everybody be happy, and it's just sad that her dad, is not here for her. But if only our man would actually just, put the mom to the side and not pretty much
absolutely
harm the child because of it's like what we spoke about earlier. With a lot of these parents on both sides are hurting the kids because they don't like the other parent. And it's unfortunate, but it happens so much. I believe the majority, and this is not, I can't back this up with stats or numbers or anything. It's just my own personal opinion. I feel like most of the broken home type cases, taking incarceration out of it. But the other ones, I guarantee you, the majority of them have something to do with one of those parents just can't stand the other parent and they can't move past whatever broke them up. And so it's trickling down to the child.
Yeah. And they did try. My sister, and my niece, he wasn't with her since she was little, and they actually tried to get back together. I'm gonna say like 2 years ago, and she's 11, so she's already gone most of her life, without her dad. And they did try. Of course, they didn't. That, well, she can make her decisions. If she wants to call me, then she can. If she doesn't, then I'll just leave it up to her. But I'm like, as a grown up, you need to call your daughter. If you leave it up to her, you need to check up on her, make sure she's okay, make sure she doesn't need anything.
All true.
And he's just gonna leave it alone.
And you know what else is unfortunate when it comes to that? When I hear that too, Bill King and the young lady we have on here, is that unfortunately, and I don't know if it comes with age as a parent, but or as a human being, we feel like time is infinite, and it's not.
Yeah,
It can be abundant. But it's not infinite. You know what I mean? Like, and I hear her saying like she's already 11, and when I think about young ladies, they're already like 3-4 years mature beyond what we, their mind is developed faster than we have. So she's going to get to that point where he's going. I really feel like he'll get to that point where he's going to be crushed. Like, because she's going to learn to adapt and do without him. And it's great that she has her aunt and her mother, at least with the emotional intelligence, to let her know what's going on around her and remind her that none of this is her fault, and that he's going to have to, he's going to have to find, which I doubt, and I hate to say that, but I don't see how he'd ever find peace in his soul, in that type of behavior, man. But that's why we had these discussions.
Exactly.
So those are my two things that I just had to say. It's just that, for those parents that are not getting along with each other, I even asked my sister, I said, if you guys can't come to an agreement, just let me do it. I'll be the middle person, because I want her to have that relationship with her dad. Like, I'll be the middle person. I'll go over there, and if you want them to eat, dinner, and, if they want to go to a restaurant, I'll go over there by myself, and I'll eat at different tables so they can have to spend their time together if she wants to chaperone or something. And he just works all the time, so he kind of really doesn't even have time to do that. So it's just like, I even tried to offer, for me to just be there if they couldn't figure it out, but then he's always busy. So it's just like, it's just sad. It's just that, if parents can actually just put the differences to the side for the kid, because the kid's the one that's going to suffer at the end, and it's not going to be the parents, it's going to be the children. And then it'll affect them in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. And unfortunately, no matter how much we want to push to do things and to mend certain things, if one or both of the parents don't want to do it or aren't willing to do it, then nothing's going to happen anyway.
Right. And it's just, and I just remembered something else. Like, so my brother, and this is now the women's role, because I was talking about the men. Now flip aside, now it's the women. So my brother has a child with this woman, and my brother didn't want to be with her anymore. And so she went back home to California, and of course she was pregnant at the time. She went back home, and she just was so upset with my brother. He didn't want to be with her, that she was like, I'm not going to let you see him. I'm not going to let you see the baby. The baby was born. The baby grew up. He didn't get not one picture, but he paid child support. She made sure that he paid child support. And she went through the whole time, not, no phone calls, no nothing. And he tried going to court here in Georgia. He did ask, what kind of rights he had. And they said that he had to do parenting classes to try to prove that he wanted to be a father. The only thing with that is the parenting classes were during work hours. And it's like, and it was a certain amount of days, maybe like 3-4 days out the week. So he's like, I'm kind of like trapped, because it's almost like, well, either I go to work or I go to these parenting classes. And it's just like, there's just no way to be able to do them. And so it put him to a point where he just would have to choose work instead of going to the parenting classes that they had during work hours. So it was kind of like he was just frustrated at the system, frustrated at her because she wouldn't let him see his kid. And now the little boy is now 18 years old. He graduated last year. And all his life, he just never knew my brother. He never knew who his dad was. And now the boy resents my brother. And he dislikes my brother. And he doesn't want nothing to do with my brother. And it's just sad because it was all the mom holding him back because of her. As he was supposed to. And it's kind of sad because you have those type of moms that hold the kids from the father because of whatever beliefs they have in their head, you know. So it could flip flop on both. At the end of the day, it begins with the parents.
Yeah.
Now, of course, you have some parents that can do everything right, and the kid just kind of follows their friends. You know, you do have that as well.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of the time, you do have it where it's one or the other, one parent or the other parent that's just not giving them that support, that love, that reassurance that kids need on a daily basis. So
yeah, so it sounds like it's kind of like what Mr. Kente was saying earlier, that for the most part, the best way to get our youth back on track is to get the parents on track.
yeah,
I mean, that's a good start. Now, that's not a perfect remedy for it,
right.
but I do believe that's a great start, because a lot of these parents that are or aren't raising these kids had somewhat of the same things happening with them when they were coming up. And we didn't even tap the part of it where a lot of these people are having kids at a young age and may not, fully be grown themselves. And so then you have other people, the quote unquote village steps in and tries to do what they can do, but when you got a carton of eggs costing what your insurance payment is most times, then people not taking the time like it was, 30, 40 years ago, where one of the parents could stay home or be home more to rear the kids. But when you really have kids raising themselves now, that makes things a lot tougher too, because they're raising themselves, or they're being raised by those that they look up to, or they have the same interest in, meaning kids their own age. And all of them are just getting things from all these different directions and bringing them into their circle and going off of that. What do you feel about that, S-Dot?
I think that's spot on. I kind of feel for a brother in that situation, because I in my case manager life, you know what I'm saying, I've been in that scenario where you get, it seems like to me like her brother should have, if he was, and it seemed like he was trying to have a relationship with a child, right? And if anybody was involved in that, he should have had a case manager working on his behalf to try to find a way for him to do the parenting classes after work or on an off day. You know what I mean? Like, with the understanding, making that, advocating for him to be like, well, look, clearly he wants to be part of life. And somebody making the argument, if he didn't want to be part of life, why would he pay the child support?
Yeah.
For 18 years. It sound like a hardworking man, probably, middle class. So he's not probably rolling the dough. And here he is making sure, that he has. And the one spark of hope I see in that, though, is that for him to have that type of character and go through that, I do believe his son is going to look for him too. He's going to ask, he's going to want to know why. Because he's probably been told he's only got half the story.
Yeah.
So he's only operating on half the information. So, but he's going to want to know why. Because I really believe he's going to come and be like, well, he didn't want to have anything to do with me, but he paid this money every time. Didn't miss a payment.
And you know what though? You know what though, S-Dot? That's if he even knows that the money is coming.
That's facts. But, and I think so, and I want to go back on that, but if he finds out, right? When if he finds out, if he deals with somebody else that went through something like that, but maybe on a negative pendulum of it, you know what I mean? Like the father didn't, or so and so. Say, man, you supposed to get child support? Or like he's at like, or he might have a conversation with his dad, find out just to want to know, right? He said, man, I made sure that check came to you every time. You can ask your mom about that. I'm not gonna bring it up. I'm not again. He doesn't sound like a guy that's gonna besmirch her name, but he's gonna be like, ask your mother. And hope she can tell you with a straight face. I hope she saved it. Yep. I don't know what to, I don't know what to tell you at that point, but that would be interesting. But I hate to hear that because that sucks. Like he should have had somebody fighting on his behalf, because often we get this, we stereotypically pick it and say, well, he's not been in the kid's life, so he must not want to be there. And she's giving this entire backstory about how he wanted to, didn't know. She went to California, didn't know, find out. When I do find out, she was able to find enough to go to court. But when I tried to have a relationship, he had a legal right to spend time with his son. Yeah. I don't care what state you're in. You have a legal right for that unless you do something that you're not supposed to.
Yeah, and to this day, my brother, he is hurt because he does want a relationship with his son. And so when that is one of maybe a few that he just don't want to talk about because it hurts him that he has a son out there and he cannot speak to him, he cannot have a relationship with him. And so that is the one sensitive spot that he will always have. And we don't talk about it. We don't talk about it with him because he just kind of just puts him in a little depression with that. And so we don't mention it. And it's kind of sad because it's like I want to say, oh yeah, my brother has a son. And I do say that, but I just don't say that in front of him. We don't really speak about it in front of him because he kind of gets emotional. He'll just walk away, or he'll just, now he'll be like, nah, not right now, or, just stuff like that. And he really is hurt by it. But I hope that his son does come around and want to know why. And like how I said earlier, like as far as my niece's dad, his parents weren't there for him. And so as far as like my brother, and help my dad's mom to support him. And my dad, for all his life, he didn't want anything to do with his dad because he didn't help his mom raise him. His mom struggled, and he was into his dad forever. And my mom kept telling him, hey, you need to get to know your dad, because now you have kids. And your kids want to know where their grandpa is from, and just anything health-wise, we need to know that side of the family. And my dad, for always, he would say no, until he finally said yes. My dad was probably, I'm going to say, maybe in his 50s, around that 50s, or about to hit 50s. He finally said, okay, I'll meet him. And when they finally got in touch with his aunt to let him, to see if they can put that together for him to meet him, his aunt told him that his dad had passed away 3 months ago.
Oh,
so he was to meet his dad. So it kind of like, I don't know, but it's almost like a ripple down effect, if it happens to the guy, most likely it might happen to the child, because that's what happened to my brother. It wasn't him, but at the time it was the girl that did it to my brother, didn't let him see his son. But the same thing happened to my dad, but my dad didn't have his dad because his dad wasn't supporting his mom or giving him, coming and seeing my dad and stuff. So it kind of just, I saw it and I'm like, man, that's kind of sad that my dad didn't have his dad. Mm-hmm. My brother had his dad, but now my brother's son doesn't have his dad. So it's kind of, I don't know. It's just,
it is.
It's sad.
It is. It's a lot. It's an awful lot to unpack and a lot to deal with. I mean, I thank you for even sharing all of that. I want to get, I see Nikita waiting. I want to get her up here in case she has something for S-Dot stuff, because even though I would love to keep S-Dot here as long as I normally keep this bad boy going, I would not do that to him, because I normally go about 3 or 4 hours, and which I'm under the weather too. So I know it ain't gonna be no 3-4 hour night. But yeah, thank you so much for that, Charmaine. And I'm gonna swap you out now.
All right, no problem.
All right. All right, S. Doc. We got Miss Hunt coming up now.
All right.
Hello.
Hello, good evening, good evening.
Good evening. How you doing?
Mm.
I'm doing well. You sound terrible, but that's another topic. We'll talk about that later.
I'm trying to tell you, I feel terrible.
It's that nice to meet you. I'm sorry. I'm Nikita. I come up every week all the time. I was in class, so I kind of missed a lot. I heard like the last hour or so, but and I'm listening to everything. Okay, so for example, we were middle class. I was raised with my mom and stepdad, who's now deceased, my first stepdad. My dad was in California. We came back from California here. My mom never spoke ill of my dad. He wasn't here. He paid child support. My mom used money that he sent on us. Okay. My stepdad was a drug addict. My grandparents were alcoholics. I grew up in an area called Laurel Creek, which was really poor back in the 70s and 80s, and watched fighting and all that. I'm going to tell you, I was super smart in school. I graduated. I was in honors advanced classes. I did not get in trouble. None of us, my brother or none of us did. We lived in a nice community, but we were way out in the country. And so we had to travel to the inner city to go be with, other friends at other schools. I didn't start getting in trouble until I was in my 20s after I had my first son. So I was 23, hanging around the wrong people, trying to fit in because I'm from the country. Everybody thinks I'm a little rich girl and they're from the inner city. So my mom raised us right. My stepdad raised us right. Even though he was on drugs, we were raised properly, okay? We went out and found the trouble with our peers in the city. All right. This is what Charmaine was saying, generational. Okay, so when I had my sons, both of them have the same dad. He's not worth the trouble, but I take accountability for that because I knew and I stayed with him, okay? Now, I never talked bad about their dad, and their dad used to beat me. He beat all his women. I got away from him, but I didn't have a good support system, okay? So I'm trying to raise young men, and I'm not a man. But I stayed in the projects. I moved around. But I always found other friends that made me family, if you understand what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
And I lived in the projects for the first time. We bartered. We talked about this on another show. And we helped each other with each other's kids is what I'm trying to say. And you can't find that. Like when we were young, we used to get our butt towed up by everybody. Everybody was auntie. We talked about this.
Yeah.
Now it's one of those things where people don't want you in their business. They know they need help. You know what I'm saying? But if you then and you try to say, listen, I've gone through this. Let me try to help you. They don't want you because then they think you're better than them or, whatever the case may be. They don't want you in their business. So I'm going to address this. I have friends who have different baby dads or whatever you want to call it, okay? Not each dad is not present. Some of them aren't, and it doesn't make the mom bad. And again, we get ourselves in situations where we might be in love with this guy and we have a baby. We were hoping to marry him, it didn't work out, okay? And then you meet another guy, and then you get married and have a child, and then that doesn't work out. The one thing I have seen lately is co-parenting. I have seen people actually co-parenting. Women can be rough because they have more feeling, and they're mad because they've given all this and done all that and stood by this man. And even though he doesn't leave because he's just being a male, bad and fighting and going back, he just don't feel it no more. And we can't let go of that sometimes. It's like, oh no, but I'm in love with you, but I can't accept that you don't want me. So they start holding the children away from the dad. You have legal rights. I said this on another show. You have a lot of rights. I'm going to go back to this because I got ADHD, I jump around. I did not ever say anything bad about my son's dad to them. My oldest son saw their dad beat me for like 3 hours.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't know. He was in there holding his little brother. And he saw that, but he still has this yearning. I never kept him away from their dad either. I tried my best to be like, you know, you need to be around your kids. He got married to a girl who has a baby in between my sons. I did things for her. Like we didn't get along, but I was like, okay, the babies don't have nothing to do with it. I tried my best, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, I didn't bother him anymore about it. And I said, my sons are going to get to the age where they're going to want to be around him. I'm not going to alter their opinion of, I need my dad. You know what I'm saying? I need my dad. This is what my dad is or whatever. I'll let them see for themselves. Okay. My oldest is 27. My youngest is 25. My youngest one will not fool with him. He'll talk to him every now and then, but he's like, I ain't doing it. Because he was like literally 2. And then my oldest one, he'll still go around him every now and then. And they have a pretty good relationship and whatever. But, you know, it's Charmaine, your brother, and I know it hurts him. Your brother, your nephew's going to come to him. He absolutely is going to come.
Yep.
Without a doubt.
He's going to come. And I admire the fact that he still paid child support no matter what. He's a good man. He did what he was supposed to do. But you just can't help how some women and men can be. You just got to keep pushing and move on. And if you can't do it by yourself, there's going to be people out here that will help you with these children. By the time she's 12 years old. That's how fast she is. And I don't really know them, but that little girl loved me. And when I see her, I'm on her ass. Excuse me, you know what I'm saying? I'm on her ass all the time. No, you can't do this, you can't do that. And her mom will look at me like, you heard what she said. Because sometimes there's not a book to teach you how to be a parent.
That's right.
There's no manual. You just got to get out here by the fly. Because even if you watched your grandma or your aunt or whoever do it and they were perfect at it, it don't mean you're going to be good at it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you have to watch, observe, ask questions and stuff. And some people are just so scared to do that and ask for help because you're gonna think that, oh, I'm just a bad parent. Some of y'all suck. I ain't even gonna lie. I wasn't the best. Anybody to be blamed. It can start in the home or it can't, like Charmaine said. Because I was good. My kids were good. My mom was great. You know what I'm saying? She worked a lot. Even though my stepdad was on drugs, we were in a nice house. We got cars. Like, in that way. Oh, let's go shoplift. That's what I did, shoplifting. But, you know, I don't know. We need to blame the parents all the time. It's not always the parents' fault. It's who their kids can lie. What is that movie ATL? Where Nunu was from the other side of the block.
Oh yeah, yep.
That's what I'm referencing. That's how we were, and then we went to the other side of tracks. I'm sorry, and we just did crazy stuff.
That's true. At the end of the day, it's like we were saying earlier. The parents, the communities, all these other things, those we lay the foundation. But at the end of the day, it's like I told my son today. I was like, I can only want the vision for your life so much. Just because I see what you can be, and just because I want it to be a certain way, at the end of the day, you have to want that for yourself. At the end of the day, you are the one that has to walk that walk that's called your life. We as parents can't walk it for you.
And my sons and their cousins, their dads are brothers. They are the type. They're like more like brothers than cousins. And my sons and their cousins are the exact opposite. Now, they stayed in trouble. We all lived in the projects. You know what I'm saying? They stayed in trouble all the time. But mine didn't. And we would actually move close to each other because we were really tight, you know. And it's amazing how you got that set. And I tell mine all the time, even though we went and we bounced around, we did all this or whatever, we've gone. He'll tell you if he wants to. But at the end of the day, I told him, I said, you can't be mad at me for not doing something or succeeding at something. If like their aunt is not the best, she's not the best mom at all. And so the cousins just are out of control. But if you really don't want to be in that situation, you have to fix it for yourself.
Yep.
And about it, they didn't want to go back and forth to jail. They didn't want to, you know. So if they see the trouble, they go away. I don't know.
Well, it's that I think.
Can we get it back on track?
Yeah, and I think you're making excellent points there. But often I think we become better parents when we become self-aware. And when we lack that, it's very difficult to instill those parental guidelines or set that description of what you think a parent should be, or be that example. You know what I'm saying? Be that example. Until we learn how to be self-aware, I think we kind of struggle with that. And unfortunately, a lot of people were robbed of those skills. Like they didn't get it from their parents or their grandparents, or like she made a great observation. You know, you had grandparents who actually dealt with, you know, alcoholism as a problem, had a father who had a substance abuse problem, and you maneuver around that to put yourself in a position, like you say, you did really well. But then curiosity kicked in, you go to another place and you pick up on these different things and they seem fun at the time, and then things kind of get jumbled up, and we just forget that this whole thing in life, like you made a great point, there is no playbook to it, there's no manual to it, anything like that. So I think the way showers have to come back out and show us the way. Like those of us who know what it is to stand up in the community, those of us who choose not to be judgmental towards others and want to have a helping hand. But I think so often now is somebody helps you think they immediately want something back from you, and we don't know how to operate on those coins. And I think we have to get back to that. But I think that'll start with the way showers, and then it'll trickle down. And I also want to say this: it starts like a conversation like this, but I think we have to remember some of the seeds that we plant today. We might not sit in that shade, and you know what I'm saying. We might not sit in that shade, but our kids might.
Yes.
It's an effort to do, and it's an effort to do that, right? You know what I'm saying. So it's not only we talk about the problem, but we try to come up with a solution. And I think that's what we've been trying to do here, and got a lot of information, a lot of different perspectives on how we can get there.
Yeah. And the one thing I can say is that even though I did the dumb shit, excuse my language, I'm well rounded.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen the book, the brain smart and the street smart. So I could give a lot of, you know, like I've seen this before, I've done it, it's the experience. So if sometimes you have children who like their parents are so guarded and they're so strict, they don't let them do anything, of course that they're going to go out here and try to find the worst thing they can do, because they're now you've made them very curious. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think that you have to have a very open dialogue. Like me and my sons are super tight. There were times that they made me grow because they sat me down. We would have really deep discussions. They like, Mom, you used to be really like not very strict, but I used to be on their ass. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And when I got with their stepdad, I married him. He was on drugs, so it's generational too, Charmaine. So you see and you live how you grow. I don't think we mean to do it. I don't think we mean to do it. It's just how it happened. And then they were like, if you get back to the way that you used to be, if you had done that, we probably would have did this and we probably would have did that. And I'm like, that's true, but you still. No, I take accountability for it because I really tried to make you an adult before you need to be an adult. I basically left you out there. Even though I was here, I wasn't in your face. And I tried to make you grow up and do it for yourself when you still needed me, because I really was all you had, you know? So even at this point, I'm still growing by listening to them. and they listen to me and they watch everything I do. So they interject when they see something going wrong. Like even if I have a friend now and she's having trouble with her son, he's 11, I'll say, I'll tell you what, I'll get Zay to talk to him, which is my oldest son, and Zay'll get on his ass. And he's 27 and her son is 11. So I'm teaching them that you don't let these kids go by the wayside.
Yeah.
Snatch them up by their neck. Say, bro, come here. Let me talk to you. Or if you see a girl who's doing something, pull her to the side and say, look, we're not doing that. If you're going to be in my life, we're going to be around each other. This is not how we act. And they'll straighten up. So they mentor them a lot. And I love that about my sons.
Yeah, it sounds like you've taught them conflict resolution, and that's helped them to be leaders. That's helped them to be leaders. So like, and I think all that came from, as you just said, like, for lack of a better term, I think we all done some dumb shit. But the important thing is that we learn from it. And it sounds like that's exactly what you did. And by doing that, you was able to, impart that into your sons, and then you see that's the ripple effect, right? That's the seed that you planted. That's pushing that further out there in that direction. How, like what they're becoming as men. They're being leaders. And they want to see they want to see the best for other people, and that's what we need, man. That's what we need. That's a way show.
And Charmaine, I think when your nephew or your cousin or whoever was saying he's gonna be like his dad, 9 times out of 10 think the mama always say, you're gonna be just like your daddy. You're gonna be just like your daddy. That's probably what he got.
Yeah.
Good point. Yeah.
Speaking it into their life.
Point. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm very careful not to say that because my oldest one looks just like his dad, and I'll tell him, you look just like your daddy, but I don't say anything bad. The youngest one look just like me, but I it wants to come out sometimes because it's little things he do, not bad stuff, but certain characteristics, like he turns his head to the side, or it's really angry because their birthdays are a day apart. This is the funny stuff. Their birthdays are a day apart. So they act just alike in a certain sense. And I want to say, well, you act just like your daddy, but I'm very careful not to say it because I don't want him to think about all the bad stuff that his dad does.
Yeah.
And it's going to turn out that way. So you have to be very, very careful what comes out of your mouth, so. Yeah,
and try not to put the word damn in the middle of it. You look just like your damn daddy. Let them know that that's not a good thing associated with it.
Yeah, not the best attribute.
It's like your daddy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's that. That's what I had to say.
Well, I appreciate you as always. And I thank you too for always. I think from day one, you've definitely always came up, gave your input. You actually a guest too. So I appreciate you. I appreciate all of those that come back and show up for me week after week, because sometimes I ain't gonna lie to you. Sometimes I don't have the energy to keep going. But with certain things, especially tonight's topic, I think there are certain things that we just have to fight through in life, because it's the outcome is a lot more important than what we're feeling at the moment. And even though I'm not naive enough to think that we can solve all of these issues, right now, but it has to start somewhere. Because to be honest with you, I didn't even, it's 10:20 now. We started at 8:00. I didn't even get to half of what I had for us to speak on and get into. I didn't even get to half of it. But I like that, because that means that we had a whole lot to say about what we did.
Yeah.
So
it became an organic conversation.
Exactly.
And it's usually like this and to me, this is therapy for me, because when I first, you've been doing them, but things start happening. I asked you to do a show and you had me as a guest. This has helped me get through what I was going through. And I try to pass it on to everybody. I try to get listen. They don't listen, that's fine.
Yeah.
But I tell them every day, listen to a podcast. It don't have to be yours or whoever. Listen to a podcast. These people are here for therapy. If that's not, you don't want to go to a therapist, this is it.
You break it up now, Keith.
The same things you're going through, trying to, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now, but whatever you said for the past 8 seconds was
I'm just saying this is just therapy for everybody, and more people, together and listen to podcasts and give their input. A lot of people don't like to come up. I talk all the time, so it's nothing for me. So.
Yeah, that's a good thing, though. And like I said, I understand. I understand it when people don't feel comfortable sharing their truth. So even asking questions and so forth. But I will say this, that be those that listen and don't want to come up, be encouraged and understand that your 3-second remark or question could spark something a lot greater. And it could be healing for somebody else. You know what I mean? So all you got to do is take that first step. It's like when I was growing up in the Pentecostal Baptist churches, when you be standing there and they be calling people to come to the altar and get saved. They'd always say, all you got to do is take that first step. And you looking around and you can tell people want to go, but nobody wants to be the first one to go.
Right.
That's kind of what it's like. So.
Well, you just reach back and grab them. Sometimes you just got to reach back and grab somebody. Say, "Come on, I got you," and then they'll start grabbing people. And I think that's how we have to be in the community, because that's how it used to be. It fell off.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But it was a pleasure meeting you, Keon. I enjoyed your discussion. I really do. King, I hope I can come back and do another show with you, brother. Please.
Brother, you gonna have to, because we didn't get through half of this.
We'll just call it part 2.
Yeah, we gonna have to do a part 2 to this bad boy.
Yeah,
I'll be healthy the next time. 100%.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I gotta get some more beds in me. And Nikita knows that this normally goes for like 3 or 4 hours, but I can't do it tonight. I gotta get some stuff in me and let my head hit a pillow. But but I truly appreciate you, S-Dot. You definitely gonna be coming back sooner than later. Believe that. So I'll be hitting you up, letting you know when we can do this part 2. Nikita, thank you. You jumped down already, but thank you. All the guests, KB, thank you. Courtney, we're gonna have to work it out, baby girl, to where you could come on for part 2. Had some difficulties this time. She didn't get to make it up, but everybody on Wisdom, all of y'all that are in here, I appreciate you. And Facebook Live, thank you guys for watching. What's going on, Nate? I see you in there. There were some questions on Facebook I didn't get to, but I'll be hitting y'all up personally and answering those questions, or they'll wait for part 2. But I appreciate everybody. Thank you all for coming. And you know where I'll be next Thursday at 8:00. We'll be doing it again with another topic. I think this part 2 will probably be week after next. Let me go ahead and say that, because I don't want to let too much time go by. I already had something set up for next week. So week after next, I think we're going to do the part 2.
Sounds good to me. I
appreciate you, S-Dot. We'll be talking, brother. Have a wonderful
Absolutely, brother. You too, bro. Love you, man.
Love you back, bro.
All right.
All right, now.